Hi there, this is Paul from the QE Darlington and welcome to another video which is about you constructing your language investigation. So I'm assuming at this point that you've collected your data together, you've got yourself a really interesting question that you're asking, and now you're sitting down to actually analyse your data. So here goes. First of all, choose one of your language levels that you think is going to provide you with lots of detail. Annotate your data very, very systematically. Perhaps you might want to do this in different colors so that, for example, all of the grammatical features that you're noticing you're putting in one color, e.g. pronoun usage, modal auxiliary verbs, things to do with sentence functions or sentence types, etc. So make sure that you do this in a really comprehensive and systematic way. This is different to writing an essay. There's a lot of data that you're looking across, and what you're trying to do is identify patterns and anomalies that are going across your data. Okay, now when you actually come to analyze your data, it may well be that visual aids, i.e. presentational devices, are going to help you show those patterns and anomalies. So a little bit more of that later on. So when you actually write your analysis, make sure that you are constantly referring back to that question or the hypothesis, and that you're linking your points to aspects of context, by which I mean, of course, things like audience, purposes, mode, genre, but also maybe like the situational context of the language or the social or historical context. So context is all about answering that question, why? Why is language being used in a certain way in this particular context? And when you're doing your analysis, always make sure that you're focusing on the meanings and representations. And if you do that, you'll stop it from being just a feature spotting exercise, which will end up pretty pointless. Okay, so analyze a little bit like as you would in an essay, but rather than just focusing on a particular detail and spending an entire paragraph writing about that, then you're analysing about the patterns that are going across the data. Okay, and it's really, really important that you're mean with words, right? You must make sure that you're writing in a very succinct and concise way, that you're saying the maximum amount of meaning in the fewest number of words possible. So the watchword of this is that your writing really should be the product, not the process of thought. Because this is, after all, a report, a written report that you're doing, and reports that are produced by organisations are the product of very detailed and careful deliberation. Okay, make sure that you refer specifically contextual factors all the way through. I think I've mentioned that. And this first language level, given that you're going to do about 1,400 words on your analysis in total, your first language level will probably be about 600 words, something like that. Now then, let's have a look at an example of a student who has been analysing her data, and what we're going to identify here are the AO1 and AO2 terms that she's using. Now AO1, of course, are the key linguistic terms for A-level, which marks you out as an A-level student rather than just a GCSE student who's snuck in on the course. So AO1 is about key terms, and AO2 is about concepts and theories. It doesn't necessarily have to be theorists, although it could be. So let's look at an example of a paragraph. This is a student who is comparing to reality TV shows. So The Only Way is Essex compared with Made in Chelsea, and what she's interested in how the males and females of both of those reality TV shows use language perhaps in different ways. Look at her topic sentence here. So the contrasting levels of formality between the two programs represent differences in socio-economic class. What you need to achieve is topic sentences like that, so that your reader can rest easy and know that the whole of the paragraph is on that topic. You're in safe hands as a reader. Okay, so we know that this paragraph is about levels of formality, and we know that the student is going to link it in somehow to social class. The TOWIE clips feature the figurative cliches and regional dialectical expressions representative of Yaus's casual level, perhaps in attempts to downwardly converge and acquire covert prestige among peers. Now we're noticing here all of these terms in blue that we're only 2 sentences into this paragraph, and we've already had levels of formality, figurative, meaning non-literal language, regional dialectical, downwardly converged. So we're ticking all of those AO1 things. But not only that, we've had a couple of AO2 theories and theorists mentioned too. So you've got Yaus's levels of formality, which is explained in the textbook, and you've also got Giles's accommodation theory as well. And notice what this student has done is that they've done an explanation about Giles's accommodation theory in a footnote, because that's just explanation and it's not analysis or evaluation. So that's what you need to be doing. So use brackets in your analysis in order to shepherd and guide the reader through the piece. Notice also that they're drawing attention to things in the appendix as well, and what the student is saying, oh look, there's a table in my appendix, why don't you have a look at that in order to really see the patterns that are going across here. So you can see this is quite significantly different to writing an essay where you'd be swooping in on a particular detail. This is very much looking at the patterns that are going across the language. Okay, let's continue reading on. There is an equal balance of taboo language between male and female characters, totals of 12 and 14 respectively, challenging early deficit and dominance gender theories about male-female patterns in politeness strategies. Okay, so that's nice. It's quantitative, so we've got actual totals put in there of 12 and 14, which is giving you supporting evidence. But it's also linking it in with AO2 knowledge, this time about gender theory and the famous sort of 4Ds that we all learn about. In this case, the deficit model of gender and the dominance model of gender. The TOWIE males tend to use a narrow range of taboo intensifying adjectives, whereas the TOWIE females' taboo language is dominated by abusive terms of address from the semantic field of sex and bodily functions. Full stop. A couple of things I want to draw attention to there. Tend to. So we've got that kind of relational verb that's used there that is not being too certain and deontic about things. So if you're producing a good academic piece of analysis, then you want to be hedging your bets a little bit and not using language which is too overly certain. So in this case, epistemic modal auxiliary verbs are going to be useful to use, or hedging adverbs and adverbials like perhaps or maybe. So you're showing that, language is not necessarily cut and dried. So that's an important area to look at. The other element I'm going to draw attention to is that because your language investigation is likely to be comparative, and therefore that's why we've got a comparative connective like that. In this case, this is a coordinating connective of comparison, whereas. Okay. Interestingly, and note there the use of the adverb there, what the student is really drawing attention to is the thing that they've discovered something, that this isn't just a feature spotting exercise, but they're actually finding out something which is quite interesting. So you need to make sure that you pepper your analysis in that way. So interestingly, although Made in Chelsea generally features a higher frequency of consultative or even formalized lexical formality, both the male and female characters match TOWIE in terms of frequency of taboo language, albeit milder in intensity and sometimes for ironic purposes. So what this is doing is it's saying, look, there is some swearing that's going on, but there's some quite deep kind of analysis going on into the kinds of swearing that's happening. It doesn't just have a table saying swear words and giving a list of them, but it's trying to kind of open the box and look at the different sorts of swear words that are happening. All in all, this is a really strong piece of analysis. It's a student who seems to be in control of the linguistic terms and is making really good passing references to AO2 theory and concepts. So therefore, it would be getting an A or an A star. So that's the target that you're looking for. Now, I've said to you that some of your analysis would benefit from being presented in a visual way. And here are the sorts of things which would benefit from it. So, for example, if you're applying grammar and you're looking at the relative number of sentence functions, let's say in political speeches. Let's say you've got Joe Biden over here and you've got Donald Trump weirdly standing over there, then you want to be looking at the sentence functions and what proportion of their sentences are those four different things. So that's a good thing to be presented in a visual way. What you also need to be aware of, however, is that just by labeling something, for example, as an interrogative, then that is not the end of the story, because an interrogative may have a questioning function, but on the other hand, an interrogative may have some other kind of function. For example, it might have a rhetorical function, or actually it may function as a declarative. So, your linguistic data can be presented in a visual way, but don't let that kind of dumb down or simplify the actual data in front of you. Okay, so sentence functions could be presented in a visual way. If you're looking at conversational analysis, and let's say you're wanting to see whether there are interruptions going on between male and female speakers in a meeting. Let's say, for example, you're taking the boardroom scenes from The Apprentice, and you're wanting to see whether the males are actually interrupting the females in a way that Zimmerman and West would have noticed back in the 1970s when they did their famous research about overlapping, then that's a good area to use visual aids. You could, for example, when you're looking at graphological features, like, for example, the relative number of different types of non-standard spellings in a person's Facebook messages. Maybe, for example, you're thinking about age here, and you're thinking, well, does a 13-year-old and a 30-year-old and an 83-year-old have different levels of non-standard spellings in their Facebook messages? That would be really good to present in a visual kind of way. Also, you could look at teacher's language in a classroom, and you may be identifying the modal auxiliary verbs that they're using. Words like can, may, might, shall, should, must, have to, all of those. And on a continuum, maybe you're demonstrating whether they are deontic, i.e. high force, or maybe they're epistemic, low force. So that's good to be presented in a visual way. Or maybe you're looking at a piece of CLD speech and it's an 18-month-old child, and you're looking at the lexis that that child is able to use, and you're trying to determine whether it's open class lexis, i.e. words like nouns and adjectives and adverbs, or whether it's closed class lexis, things like prepositions and determiners and connectives. So you have to be careful about choosing the right kind of areas to be using presentational devices. So use visual presentations to demonstrate clear linguistic patterns, and that could be to do with lexis or grammar or graphology or phonology. And avoid using these kind of presentational devices where really these patterns are less clear cut. For example, in semantics or discourse or pragmatics. So what you're doing is you're embedding this visual data into your prose analysis. So the accompanying prose analysis should really kind of evaluate the patterns and discuss maybe some of the anomalies. And also, as I said before, draw attention to actually some of the problems and the limitations in presenting the data in this way. Now, what sorts of presentational devices am I talking about? Well, students often do this sort of thing. They do bar charts. So this is one that shows types of non-standard spellings in a student's Facebook messages. That can work well, where you've got the number of instances there, over there, and then you've got the different types of non-standard spellings. For example, number homophones, like are you going to the party? That's a number homophone. Or letter homophones, like you, what are you doing? Okay, so charts like that are fairly easy to use, and they can present patterns going across data very easily. Another thing that students sometimes do is using pie charts like this. This particular one shows the etymological roots of nouns in a 17th century scientific text. Okay, so it's looking at where these words have come from. Presumably, it's trying to see if these new words that are coming into the language being used to describe science are from ancient Latin and ancient Greek. And as you can see, the pattern holds up quite well there because a relatively large number of words in the scientific text actually come from Latin and Greek etymological roots, whereas a relatively small proportion of words are coming from Anglo-Saxon. Okay, so the pie chart is good there because it's showing you the relative proportion of the whole thing. And another thing that students do, and this may feature in your actual analysis, or it may be just put in your appendix, are tables. So this one is about rhetorical techniques that David Attenborough is using in his documentaries. So on the left there, you've got some of the quotations. Some of the most beautiful creatures here are hummingbirds. That was from 1979. And here is the comment that the student has made about it. So the superlative adjective, with its positive connotations, positions the audience as appreciative of aesthetic beauty. So it's making a point there using an AO1 term, but it's also linking it in to AO3 like the context. In this case, talking about its impact on the audience. So there are a couple of quotations from his 1970s documentaries. And then what the student has done is they've made a comparison with more recent ones. Nature's greatest experiment, for here life has evolved in isolation. I am turning into David Attenborough. So the comment there is personification. So the script implies that nature is at its best when not interfered with. So there's the point there about tables. Tables can be very useful in getting a handle on the data that you've got. Okay, so here's an example of a student, and this is in our folder here. So this is a student from last year who was doing a comparison between the language of Piers Morgan and Susanna Reid on Good Morning Britain. And on this bit, he's looking at sentence functions. And when he did his analysis, he accompanied it with this particular table. Now just look at the table there. The table is headed, as your tables need to be. So Morgan and Reid's use of sentence functions when interviewing political guests on GMB. So notice the precision of the wording there. And notice here that at a glance, you're already seeing immediate patterns because the things in blue are Piers Morgan and the ones in red are Susanna Reid. And you can see the clear differences in comparison between the kinds of sentence functions that they're using. And then it links in very nicely with this paragraph. I won't read all of the paragraph, but I'll just read the beginning of it. So both speakers use sentence functions in different ways to establish power. We've got a really nice topic sentence there, which tells me, the reader, oh, this is about sentence functions. Morgan frequently uses direct interrogatives to fulfill numerous purposes. These are often repeated, such as, would you accept it? Which would require a simple yes or no preferred response from the recipient, and is used to subtly criticise the validity of political parties, which represents Morgan as authoritative, able to manipulate power in his favour through IRF, which means initiation, response, feedback, which is a bit of research done by two theorists called Sinclair and Coulthard. Okay, I'm not going to read all of that, but you can see there how the analysis, the prose analysis there, is accompanied by the visual aids, and it just clarifies the pattern that is being exposed. Okay, so that's what you're doing on your analysis, and I've shown you very strong examples there. I mean, I acknowledge that most students' responses are maybe not as strong as some of the ones that I'm showing you, but I wanted to give you really strong kind of A and A star ones as your kind of target to be aiming towards. Okay, so I think that's all that we need to be doing today. Thanks very much, and I will see you on another occasion.